Hello, welcome to my scope. Hi, I want to give everyone a chance to, hello FC Rockets 1. Hello, I want to give everyone a chance to join in. Hi, I am Brooke-Sidney. I am the Bella of Bella and the Babe. And today we are talking all about The Conscious Parent. This amazing book by Dr. Shefali Sabari. I'm trying to talk all about the book club while my son is on his walk. I'm so excited to have a quick break, but I wanted to, I really think this is a really important book, so I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to get parents and people considering becoming a parent to start thinking about these principles that she writes about in her book. Hey, thanks Faith-Fueled Mom for joining. Welcome. Just to recap, hi, I'm Brooke-Sidney. I am from Bella and the Babe. My site is all about empowering authentic motherhood. I am an authentic and conscious mothering guide. I really help free moms from the world of shoulds to feel goods, right? Like I really truly believe that mothers should mother from within and not a certain way. There's no right way to parent or to mother. So when I decided to start this book club because I really thought that it had some amazing ideas that were worth covering. So I want to get started. I hate when people just sit and wait in the scopes for like 1 million people to come in. I really want to get started, and then if I have to, I'll keep recapping for the people that join in. So I have 5 basic points that I gathered. Hello, Ask Rochelle, that I gathered while reading the first chapter. And originally, I was planning to cover like 2 or 3 chapters, but this first chapter is so incredibly rich. Hello, hi Rochelle, thanks for joining. The first chapter, which is entitled A Real Person Like Myself, was just so rich that there were so many points that I didn't want to just skip through it in an effort to get through multiple chapters. The goal really is to get something from it. Hello, M. Harado, thanks for joining. The goal is really to get something out of it, I felt like, and not just rush through it. So the first thing that I think is really key to take from that first chapter is that children are obviously, like she says, a real person like herself and not a mini-me. And she does a really awesome job of telling the story about her daughter. Oh, hi, Imparado. We are talking about the book, The Conscious Parent. It's all about transforming ourselves and empowering our children. And so I will just do another brief recap. Hi, Cherie. Thanks so much for joining. I am Brooke-Sidney. I am from the site Bella and the Babe, and my site is all about empowering authentic motherhood. Hi, hello, thanks so much for joining. I am an authentic and conscious mothering guide, and I really help women mother from a place free of shoulds and mother instead from a place of feel good. Get rid of the mommy guilt. We want to be free of all of that. We want to be able to mother from our center. And mothering for our children, our individual children, is really, it's so important to mother in a way that makes sense to us, that there's no quote unquote right way. So I have chosen to read The Conscious Parent as a book club. So great, I'm so glad that you joined in. So I had just started off with point number 1. There are 5 really good points to take away from this book and the first chapter. And the first point is that our children are real people. They are not our mini-me's. And she gives this lesson very clearly by using an example of her child who sure, I can follow you back, who tears up a dollar bill and places it under, half of the dollar bill under her pillow and half of it under her husband's. And at that moment, part of her wanted to like cry out like, oh my gosh, don't you know the value of $1? Like, you just ripped up a dollar bill. But instead, because she was able to see the bigger picture and wanted to really nurture her child's spirit, she instead thanked her child for being so generous and being so creative and so thoughtful. And I think that this really illustrates the fact that basically becoming a conscious parent is really about choosing how we respond to our children, choosing in those individual moments how we can foster our child's spirit. She has an awesome quote on page 2, and it says, "Parenthood affords many occasions in which we find ourselves in a battle between our mind and our heart, which makes raising a child akin to walking a tightrope. A single misplaced response can shrivel a child's spirit, whereas the right to comment can encourage them to soar. In each moment, we can choose to make or break, foster or cause to freeze up their spirit." I just love that, because I think that it truly is often about, especially in that moment when our child is doing something crazy, like trying to break something or things. If you agree with something, please give me hearts so I know that I'm just not talking to myself, and I'd love to hear your comments. Okay, great. I'll catch you next time. Thanks so much for joining. Children are just being themselves, right? And depending upon their age group, they are still learning and testing boundaries. And so a lot of times the way that we respond to the children is really our own conditioned response. And so I love how she gives this amazing example of not getting into the preachy, sermony, I'm going to tell my child about the value of $1, but rather trying to see the moment from her child's perspective and think of, yeah, it is a sweet story. Thanks, Sheree. Yeah, it's such a sweet story. Trying to think of that moment as, how can I foster my child's spirit? And I think that's the challenge, right? That's the challenge, is to be able to, in the moments, kind of step away from our own stories and our own perspectives and try to see things in a broader perspective, right? But I love the part about how she says we aren't raising a mini me. Like, how many of us out there, honestly, when we had children, we wanted a mini me? Like, there's totally a part of me that wanted a mini me, like wanted my child to look like me, talk like me, whatever, think like me. Like, wouldn't that be so much easier if our children thought like us and did things like us? Potentially, right? But they're not. Like, our children came here, not you. Good. Like, sure, you're farther along than like a lot of us. But I at one point did, and I realized, no, that's not the case. And thank you, Sammy Bella, for joining. That's not the case. Like, children come here with their own divine purpose. They have their own purpose, their own mission, own things that they have to accomplish. They are not mini me's. And, our job as parents are to help them achieve that, to guide them to keep them looking towards themselves and towards spirit. So I love that she, from the beginning of the book, she sets out that children are not our mini me's, and that we have in each moment the decision to make on whether we are going to, foster their spirit or hinder it, right? So I love that. I love that. So the second point, we're on point number 2. The first point, just to recap, was that children are not our mini me's, that they're real persons like ourselves. The second one is that parenting unconsciously is where we all begin. So I know, like, there's some of us out there that have read this book. Maybe you've been parenting for a long time, or were blessed to have awesome, amazing, conscious parents. But a lot of us, we are, and myself included, we're working on becoming the most conscious parent that we can be, right? So we are moment by moment having to think about our beliefs, having to think about our egoic filters, think about our stories, think about the way that we're perceiving things. And it didn't necessarily come consciously. Like, she does a really good job of she asked this question. She says, it's helpful to ask ourselves, what is my parenting mission, my parenting philosophy? How do I manifest this in my everyday interaction with my child? Have I mapped out a thoughtful, mindful mission as I would were I running a major organization? Oh my goodness, right? Like if parenting was approached the way that we approach our jobs or creating a company, we would like from the outset say, how are we going to do this? Like this is this huge, challenging task, right? Like some could argue it is the most challenging task that we have to do. So how many of us truly ask ourselves these questions, or our husbands or our partners, right? Like, how are we going to parent? What's our parenting mission? What's our parenting philosophy? I mean, I honestly tried. Thanks, Ren Ferry, for joining. I honestly tried. I think that I've answered some of those questions. And of course, right, as you learn more, you adjust your philosophy. But I think that it's critical as we step into this living and parenting consciously and getting out of the unconsciousness that we try to think through those particular questions. I love that. And she also says, which is amazing, is that it isn't out of a lack of love that we impose our will on our children, but stems from a lack of consciousness. So it's not like as parents, we want to be unconscious and that we want to just impose our wills and beliefs on our children. No, it's not. It's just that we don't know any different. And, you know, we can't do anything different unless we know different, right? So I think it's really awesome. And I'm so excited that you're on this Periscope because you're at least thinking about like parenting in a conscious manner. Because one of the things that was really interesting was that she was saying how when we come from an unconscious place, we really create this cycle of unconsciousness. It's like generation after generation. So if we don't change, yes, we easily do repeat our parents' words. That's so correct, Sheree. It's so on point. You know, it seeps into generations after generations, and most of us are just parenting the way that we were parented. It's just that simple. Like, unless we consciously say to ourselves, we want to do something different, most of us parent and mother exactly the way that that we were parented or mothered. So it's encouraging, I think, to think about the fact that we can change it and that we can, every step is I think a step in the right direction, but it's really, really profound how generational it is and how we really have to start asking these questions, right? So number 3 is to connect with our children, we have to first connect with ourselves. Let's see. Can you still be effective when you only get the kids on the weekends? Billy asked this question. I think yes. You know, not to go too far off on a tangent, I love this question. I think that being a conscious parent is like a full-time job because a lot of it is the work that we have to do. So whether you just see your children on the weekends or you see them every day, and quite honestly, a lot of people with working schedules, even though they don't just see them on the weekends, they supposedly see them during the week as well. Like, they really don't, because you spend so much time going to work and back, and children are in daycare or so forth. So it really is about the time and the presence that you have with your children, and it matters. And there are a lot of people that are getting more presence from their parents on the weekends than some parents during the week. That's kind of the real deal. So definitely, I would say definitely, like, you can totally use these tips. You can totally use these tips. Oh, you're welcome. Whether you're parenting on the weekend or all the time, because you're always the parent, and it really is how well you're trying to become a conscious parent. So thanks for asking that question. I'd love to hear more of your guys' thoughts. So again, the third point from her chapter is that to connect with your children, you must first connect with yourselves. And I think of this as like the no more top-down approach. And this is where, honestly, I think this is where her philosophy, and the book for a lot of people falls apart. Like, some people are like, this is crap. But some people really don't like the fact that she's advocating for parents to work on themselves, to awaken themselves, to look at their limiting beliefs. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the name of the book is The Conscious Parent. It is by Dr. Shefali Sabari. Awesome book. She was featured on Oprah. Eckhart Tolle wrote the beginning. He wrote the recommendation for her book. Just an amazing book. And I encourage people to get it, whether or not you agree with everything in it. It encourages you to stretch your mind, as well as to think about your own parenting philosophy. So anyway, point number 3 was that to connect with our children, you must first connect with yourselves. And basically this particular thought of her philosophy goes directly against the traditional hierarchical parental model, where the parent is at the top and the child is below. What the parent says goes, and what the child says doesn't. It goes against, I know I was raised be seen and not heard. It goes against all of that. It goes against the parent is all knowing and the child knows nothing. Her model is all about circular parenting. It's about being open and allowing your child to have a voice and a place, being able to learn from your child. It's not a control and dominance model, which is the traditional model. Oh, thank you for the hearts. It's not that model. It is completely different. She even says that if you want to enter into a state of pure connection with your child, you can achieve this by setting aside your sense of superiority, by not hiding behind an egoic image, and you will be able to engage your child as a real person like yourselves. Oh, thanks, Billy. I like this philosophy too. I think that it stretches us, right? And it encourages us to really think about the spirit and individual nature of our children, and to parent accordingly, and not just, this is the way it is, my way or the highway, kind of a top-down approach. So what she also does in this section of the book, and it's really helpful, and I'm going through this very slowly so that we can all have a great foundation, but she defines ego. Because she talks about it a lot in this book. Yes, go check it out at the library. It's awesome. I think, you can get it in the ebook version. It's also a audiobook as well. So there's several ways to get this information. So she defines the ego as an artificial sense of ourselves. It's an idea, I love that we have about ourselves based mostly on other people's opinions. It's the person we've come to believe we are and think of ourselves as. And she's like, it's like this self-image that's layered over who we truly are at our essence. I think I do that without thinking about it. Oh, that's awesome. Oh my goodness, Sheree, that's amazing. So that's like our ego. That's how most people function. That's kind of the unconscious self. And then she says what our core self is, it's essentially our essence. It's our fundamental being, and our essence is limitless. And she says it's existing in complete freedom. It has no expectations of others, no fear, and no feelings of guilt. I love that. And that goes into my mission for what I do with mothers, is to help us mother from our core essence, from our core self, so that we feel freedom, right? Because we're mothering from our essence. We feel freedom, and then we are free from guilt. I love that. So then she kind of goes on and she talks more about how our ego can masquerade in our emotions, and basically, to parent unconsciously, we need to become aware of the influence of the ego. I think that, unless we're spiritual masters or whatever, Jesus, Buddha walking around or something, most of us have ego, and we're probably going to have it. But the key is that we see it for what it is, right? And especially in the tender moments with our children and the challenging moments with our children, right? So I don't know what this is bringing up for you guys, but I know for me it is bringing up the challenge to be even more aware of my ego. And when I get into my emotions, to really wonder if I'm just being triggered by something egoic or if it's really from my true essence. So I think this is amazing. So now moving on to number 4 is you can build a feeling of kinship in your family. And I really think of number 4 as creating oneness in your parent-child relationship leads to a spiritual journey. Okay, let's see, Billy, you said I'm a part-time dad on the weekend, so I need help. I feel like I'm a pushover dad. Awesome. Well, then this philosophy is definitely for you. That actually is part of point number 5 about pushover dad, but in parenting and being permissive, conscious parenting is not about being a pushover or being permissive. A lot of people think that. A lot of people think that if you don't have a top-down approach, then you are going to let everything fly. Your children are going to run the house. And that's not the case at all. It really is, it's almost parenting, I would say, and I say this to the mamas, it's parenting from a different place of power. It's parenting from your essence, from your center. So you then, because you are more conscious and you are parenting from your essence, so for you as the dad, you are in touch with who you are awakened to how you're truly feeling and being, and you're then creating what's key is this connection with your child. So you won't feel like a pushover because you know where you are in yourself and in your relationship with your child. And you'll know what feels right to you. You'll start knowing what feels authentic. And I think once you know what feels authentic to you, it's easier to place boundaries. And boundaries are all about discipline and how we guide our children, right? So once we are in tune with our essence and are more conscious, then we can much easier create the boundaries that we need for our children and create them from a space of no fear, right? I'm doing the best thing and I know that. Like, I don't have to feel like I'm being pushed anywhere. I'm comfortable with my boundaries, right? I don't feel any fear. I'm free from guilt, right? When we're coming from our essence, from that part of ourselves, our authentic selves, we're coming from the place of no fear and no guilt. So it becomes even easier to create boundaries that are tailored to your child because you're so connected to them. You have that relationship, and you at your core self, you know what's best, right? So I mean, that's almost like the 5th point. So I just want to kind of go back over 4 because 4 was all about, creating this oneness and this parent-child relationship that becomes a spiritual journey. And by removing ourselves as parents from this top-down approach and looking at it in a more spiritual way and all about connecting with our child, we open ourselves up to learning. We open ourselves up to being on this transformative spiritual journey. We open ourselves up to what our children perhaps came to teach us. Like, so many of us think that our children are here for us. Like, we had the child and so forth. And, our child's going to do what we want them to do. And they're going to learn all this stuff from me. And many of us don't step back to think, wow, well, why did I get this particular child? Why was this child sent to me? Why did God's Spirit, however you define it, Sheree, I'm sorry I missed that, but why did I get this particular child? Perhaps it's because there are lessons that I need to learn, and that there's growth that my child is going to help me with. I wrote, strangely enough, as an aside, I wrote a poem, When My Child Chooses Me, about 10 years before I actually had my son. And it was all about my life's path, even before having the child, that was preparing me, thanks Billy, that was preparing me to have a child. And knowing that the experiences that I was going through were going to help my child. And I trust that God would give me the child that was meant to be on this journey with me, and that I was meant to be on the journey with him or her. Ended up being a him, but you know, that's what I believe. I don't even know where I got this from, you know, in my, you know, 20 something self, like with no children. Thanks, Tree. But yeah, I totally believe that, you know, your child is with you for a reason. And when we look at that relationship less top down and more circular, we're able to see the children in our lives as transformative. I love that. So she writes that we can view parenting as a process of spiritual metamorphosis, which allows us to create this psychic space to invite the lessons in. You know, when we're not in our egoic self, we're able to see, oh my goodness, you know, my child is showing me generosity, not a torn dollar bill. Oh, thank you. Or my child is showing me love. He was just trying to hug me or something and he kicked over a plant, whatever it is. You know, whatever it is, like when we're not in that space of this is my story or this is how I always see things, we are able to see like the lessons that we're able to learn from them. And it's so beautiful. So the fifth point, and Billy kind of helped bring this out, but is how consciousness changes how we parent, and that conscious parenting basically is not no discipline. Doesn't mean no discipline, and it doesn't mean permissive. So she kind of begins this section saying that consciousness isn't magic, right? I think that, and actually to me this is totally freeing, right? That consciousness is a process of becoming less unconscious. It's not like magic, like boom, today we're no longer unconscious. It's a process. It's a process that is progressive, right? And our children, if we allow them, can become our greatest awakeners. I love that. And they can show us back to our very essence. Oh, that, I mean, I really, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I just think that's amazing. But she says that as much as conscious parenting is about listening to our children, honoring their essence, and being fully present with them, it's also about boundaries and discipline. It's not permissive parenting. And the conscious approach to discipline is really grounded in our ability to exercise presence with our children. And I think of it like we must create the connection first. I think that her entire philosophy really hinges on us becoming unconscious, because becoming conscious allows us to be authentic, and then we can authentically connect with others. And in this particular case, it's our children. And that creates a whole different dynamic, both for understanding our children, meeting them where they are, listening to them, knowing what they need, and quite frankly, helping us grow too, right? So I know that's a lot, right? That's been totally a lot. I think it's a lot. So just kind of to recap, and I thank you so much for those of you that are still on and for your awesome comments. So to recap quickly, because I don't want to keep you all forever, because this is only chapter 1. But the first one was that our children are real people like ourselves. They are not our mini-me's. And the second point is parenting unconsciously is where we all begin. Oh, Billy's like, keep going. Thank you. And the third is to connect with your children, you must first connect with yourselves. And that's basically the no more top-down approach. And I feel like, I really do, I feel like that part of her philosophy triggers the most people, because hierarchy is what we do. That's what we're used to. In our country, everything is run in most things are run in a hierarchical system. So I think that this is where she gets the most, criticism. But I also think it's the place in which it challenges us the most. Any advice on 4-year boys when you're done? Okay, let me finish the recap. And then 4 is you can build a feeling of kinship in your family. And that's basically the point that creating oneness in your parent-child relationship leads to the spiritual journey, which I think is the most awesome part about all of this, is creating that amazing spiritual transformation with yourself, right? Like that's the beauty, is that it's not just about the child. It, quite frankly, it really starts with the parent. And oh yeah, Cherie, it's so very important. It's truly this transformational journey that we're lucky to go on when we have children. And then the 5th point, just to recap, is how consciousness changes how we parent, and that conscious parenting, despite what people may think, it's not about having no discipline and being permissive. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's being aware and conscious enough to be able to make disciplined decisions from our essence, to create boundaries that make sense for ourselves and for our child, to do things that feel in alignment with ourselves, to do things that feel good. So kind of to answer Billy's question, is like any advice for, boys. I think you said, I can't remember if it was 4 boys or a boy that was 4. I think it really is. I know that parenting, a lot of people think parenting boys is different from parenting girls. I myself, I have a son, so I definitely see the developmental differences, especially in terms of temperament. But I think that ultimately these principles apply whether you have a girl or a boy, and whether you're the father or the mother. I think because our children are, at some level, are going to mirror what we're learning and how we are growing. And so if a 4-year-old boy, oh, so cute. I think that the earlier, definitely is different for boys. Yes, Cherie, like totally. It's so funny. Like I will see little girls with my son, and my son's running around, into everything, and the girls are just like sitting there, very quiet, to themselves, playing with the toys around them. It's night and day. But I know that I hear it changes as they get a lot older, like as they're in their teens, like the girls then become the wild and crazies. I don't know. But I think that it's key, and I think that Dr. Shefali talks about this, is that the sooner that we can create this conscious, connected relationship with our children, the better. It's harder. I think it has to be harder once they are in their teens, because you've gone through 10, 12, 14 years perhaps of a totally different parental model, a totally different way of doing things. So, people, all of us, we're creatures of habit. Like we go with what we know. So the earlier, especially with having a 4-year-old son, the earlier that we can parent consciously and connect with our children, the better relationships we're going to have, the more we're going to learn, the more we're going to grow, the more we're going to allow our children to be who they came to be. I think the easier we're going to have in the long run, especially when our children get older and they're out of the house, having these adult relationships with our children. All of this is based on connection. The old model of, do as I say, not as I do, seeing this parent as greater than, it's not going to work. It's not going to fly anymore. It's that consciousness is going by the wayside. We really, in all of our relationships, we want to seek a sense of connection and not control. And that's what I love about the book, is that, she's pushing the boundaries. She's talking about a new paradigm. Oh, I do let him make some decisions. That's awesome. That's awesome. When children are allowed to make decisions and start understanding like their preferences, it's fostering their spirit. It's fostering who they are. They're learning about themselves in those moments. So Cherie says, my eldest son comes to me with things that I don't want to hear, and he's in college. Right. I'm sure, because I know that, like, I don't have a child yet in college, but I know that I must go to my mom with stuff. She's like, wait, I don't really want to hear this. Wait, why are you telling me this? But Cherie, that also speaks to the relationship that you have with your son, that he feels like he can tell you things that you don't want to hear. So anyway, I don't want to just take up everyone's time. I really have enjoyed this today. Yes, Cherie, that bond is so special. Yes, and you have fostered that amazing bond. Like, that's what parenting is, right? Oh, I mean, I love hearing those stories. Oh, thank you, Billy. You're welcome, and I'm so happy that you joined us today. So I will be doing at least one scope a week, maybe two, on the conscious parent. Yes, definitely look up this book. There's links on my site. My site is bellaandthebabe.com, and I have links to get the book. But definitely you can get it through your library. I'm all about, like, supporting libraries. So I really thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for the hearts. It's hard to know if what I'm saying is resonating or I'm just talking to myself. So I really appreciate all of you that have been on today. I hope you will join me next time. And if you have any further questions, feel free to tweet me. My Twitter handle is Carmel Bella. It's the same as my Periscope handle, and my website is Bella and the Babe. I look forward to next time. Take care.